going to be. This is a main share meeting, and today it is with great pleasure and much gratitude that we welcome Reggie W. from Los Angeles, who's going to share for us for about 40 minutes, after which we'll open up for general sharing, or if you'd like to ask Reggie a question. Reggie, it's wonderful to have you here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Sky. My name is Reggie White. I'm an alcoholic, and I want to thank that famed world traveler, Mr. Young Lee, for inviting me out again, giving me an opportunity to come back and make up for the last time when my computer went out. And I could have listened to Rachel's and Percy all morning long. I love the accents. That just drives me crazy. I could sit and do nothing but listen to you guys read. But you asked me here to talk about something in as Bill sees it, and in my opinion, what I like to do is talk about things that are rooted in my experience, as opposed to things where it's just a theory. That way, in that way, I can actually be a lot more effective. And this is an interesting as Bill sees it. That spiritual axiom that when we're disturbed, no matter what the cause, there's something wrong with us. And if somebody hurts us, we're sore, then we're in the wrong too. And a lot of times that's true. And now I have to go back and give you a little bit of my experience. You can understand my disturbance, because my disturbance manifested itself in that thing in the second paragraph, which is justifiable anger. And it wasn't a tiny thing. It wasn't something where somebody just stole something from me or anything like that. So I had 11 years sobriety, and I've been going along in life just loving it. Life had been going good. I had stopped really going to AA, not because I wanted to, but because life showed up. And I just, everything was so good. Nothing was bad. Everything was good. Brand new family. I have a brand new family. I got a great job, a dream job. I'm living on 2 coasts. I'm flying back and forth. So my wife and I are together just enough to really love each other. We're not stuck together, so we're not on each other's nerves. I'm flying back and forth, and we're always happy to see each other. My kids are happy. Everything's going well. And then my little girl gets sick. And the doctors gave her medication that wasn't supposed to be given to a child that age. After they gave her that medication, it chewed her kidneys up from the inside, and it ate them up, and she was for 4 long months we were back and forth. You think, okay, just stop the medication. No, it was a seizure medication. You can't just stop it. You actually have to switch it to another medication. So we couldn't stop it, but we're back and forth to that hospital, begging them to stop to switch the medication. My daughter, in the meantime, is a daddy's girl. She loves me more than anything in the world, and she trusts me, and she thinks I'm Superman, and she thinks I can stop any hurt. And all she can think, that she's 4.5 years old, is to hug me and, Daddy, tummy hurts, and look at me and wait for me to fix it. I can't fix it. I'm helpless. And then I take her to another hospital, the best hospital in LA. And they take one look at her and say she's in too much pain, and they intubate her and put her in an coma. And then all of AA gathers around, of course. You guys, you were there with us. She was in an induced coma for 3.5 weeks, and I was at the hospital for 3.5 weeks, and so was my wife, and so was my stepson, and so was all of AA, and so was all of my family, and so were all of the church people. We were surrounded. We were not alone for 1 second, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Doctors came out. It turned out that what happened, they got a call. They called the manufacturer finally of the medication after 3.5 weeks. And the manufacturer told them exactly what we had been saying. It was the medication. They said it was Tegretol poisoning, Tegretol pneumonitis. And so instead of telling us that, they told us, oh, we figured out what's wrong with your baby. We just need to do exploratory surgery. But what they did is they basically lied. See, when they opened her up with the exploratory surgery, it killed her, and I kind of lost my mind, and I totally shut down, and I left AA. I did not get loaded. I didn't go use or I didn't go drink, but I got angry. I got angry at God, and I was cursing God. because I had prayed, I begged God, take my life, save my daughter. And I thought that God let us down. And I'm like, what did I do wrong? I've been a good person. I helped a lot of people. Why would you do this? And my mom, who's the total church lady, came in with the big guns, all the church people, and they're praying. And I just knew we were just waiting for this miracle to happen, right? I'm waiting for my baby to come out. I didn't even think it took a miracle. I just thought I was waiting for her to come out of this. And I kept waiting for something to happen. And when something happened, it was just unthinkable. And I totally shut down. And you guys tried to reach me and you couldn't. And I was just angry. And I'm pissed. And it was self-righteous anger. But that wasn't it. That wasn't the whole thing, right? That's what I share about in my story that you guys get to hear. But then, and I would have been okay. I was angry and I didn't go back to AA. I just couldn't hear you guys. I never went back to that job. I didn't go back to AA. I was just totally shut down and angry all the time and cursing God. Then but we knew enough to go have we did medical malpractice. We had a medical malpractice trial. And in discovery, we found out some things. That's when I found out that they had actually called the manufacturer, and the manufacturer told them what it was. Why did they make a decision for my daughter to die? A lot of times people don't understand when I say my daughter was tortured the first 4 months, actually killed. She was murdered. They made a decision, a money decision to kill my daughter. And I don't expect it out of the doctors. We found out, well, it turns out that in the state of California, which is where I live, if your child dies of medical malpractice, the total liability, the total exposure is $250,000. But if they live and it's medical malpractice, it's unlimited liability. And their own exposure is unlimited. And they have to pay whatever it is. And the medical care for the rest of the child's life. And the jury even awarded us $3.75 million, but they had to lower it to $250,000 cap, that limit. The doctors made a money decision to murder my daughter, to kill my daughter, and it shocked me. And that's when I really went off the rails, and that's when I relapsed. I don't talk about that. But when I found out what they did, that they actually made a decision for my daughter to die because of money. Because my wife or me or my son could have given her a kidney. So now I got totally justified anger, right? Now I'm totally justified in my anger. I'm furious. I'm furious at God. I'm furious at the medical profession. I'm furious at myself. I don't know if some of you guys have seen that movie by Denzel Washington. It's called John Q. And in John Q, his son needed a heart. And what Denzel Washington did is he took over the emergency room with a gun. And he told them they better do a heart transplant on his son. And the whole movie was about him being in there to get a heart transplant for his son. Well, I can't watch that movie without crying because I thought, why didn't I take a gun in there and make them switch that medication on my daughter? I thought all kind of crazy thoughts. I thought that I didn't do enough, that what was wrong with me, that there was something wrong with me that my daughter died, that I didn't believe enough, and so God didn't step in, that I didn't do enough, so the doctors didn't do what they needed to do. And so I'm angry at myself. I'm angry at God. I'm angry at the doctors. I'm angry at AA for no reason at all, except once I relapsed. And so what is it saying here? But is there no exception to this rule? What about justifiable? They talk about somebody cheating us. Aren't we entitled to be mad? Well, when my daughter gets tortured and killed, and she was actually murdered for money, for a decision of money, aren't I entitled to be angry? Shouldn't I have the right to be angry? For those of us in AA, those adventures in anger are sometimes very dangerous. We found that even justified anger ought to be left to those better qualified to handle it because the risks are so great. Because once I had that justified anger, and then I had 11 years sobriety, and I went out not to drink. I finally, I stayed sober 11 months after my daughter died, and I found out about the fact that when we did discovery, and we found out that they actually knew what was wrong with my daughter, and they made that decision. They lied to us and said, oh, we have to do exploratory surgery. They didn't have to do exploratory surgery. They knew what was wrong with her. They knew that when they opened her up, they would kill her. And then their liability would only be $250,000. And the fact that they made a money decision, and of course, myself being black, I'm thinking if I had maybe not been black, maybe they would have cared more about who my daughter was. You know, that's the reality of life in America as well. And so I got all this going in my head, all of this justified anger. And it's dangerous for us. It's dangerous for alcohol because I made exactly the wrong move and I went to a bar and I drank. And when I drank, after I drank and I drank for 2 weeks, I mean, it all came rushing back at me. And I immediately regretted it, right? I immediately regretted it. It talks about it in the book, and it talks about how, I'm forgetting the exact words, but it talks about how out of proportion it is. Like when we go and drink, that it's just, what was I thinking? Is that really the solution? No, it's not. Because everything got immediate. Everything, it did not help at all. Everything got immediately worse. Just justified anger in the hands of an alcoholic is almost like a death sentence. I should have been dead. There should be absolutely no way that I'm your speaker here this morning. I drank for 2 weeks, and then after 2 weeks, she came in the bar, and then I asked her that question, you get high, and then I did what I really wanted to do for 2 more weeks. Then it was the anniversary of my daughter's death, and I wanted to see God so he could explain things to me. I wanted to be back with my baby, which is the last place I'd been happy. I took a bunch of pills and I committed suicide. I was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital on the anniversary of my daughter's death. And God pulled me back. He wouldn't let me die. And I was just angrier then because when I came to, I wasn't looking at God. I wanted God to be explaining things to me. Instead, I was looking in the face of my mom. And my mom was terrified looking at her son here that tried to take his life. And I'm ashamed and I'm humiliated and I'm terrified and I'm angry. And I'm angry at you guys. I'm angry at God. I'm angry at my mom. I'm angry at me. I'm angry at my brothers because they still had their sobriety. I got 3 brothers with 36 and 37 years of sobriety. I'm pissed at them. I'm angry at the world, right? And justified anger in the hands of an alcoholic is a dangerous thing. And for 16 years, I was out there. And every single person that I knew gave up. I tried, after about 5 or 6 years, being just angry and drinking and using, me and my family split up. Me, my wife, and my stepson. My wife was in Alcoholics Anonymous as well. And she relapsed as well eventually, long after I did, a couple of years after I did. But it was horrible. It was horrible. And after we tore each other apart, I did nothing to hold my family together. I totally regret that and have total shame about that. I didn't hold my family together. We destroyed each other in about 5 or 6 years. And then I tried to get back to you guys. I had to get back without God. I was still angry at God. I stayed angry at God all 16 of those years. And I stayed. It was just anger. That was my best friend. And I thought that that's what held me together. I didn't know that God was carrying me all that time. I didn't realize that because I just hated God. And thank God that God doesn't need my permission to work in my life because God was still in my life working with me. In those 16 years, I did so many things that put me on the edge of death. Nothing happened. Because I didn't care if I died. Dying would have been a relief. I absolutely did not care. We alcoholics have no business with justified anger, you know. And so for those 16 years, I had plenty of incidents of pitiful, incomprehensible moralization. I had plenty of time going in and out of this fellowship, trying to get back to you guys. But I was trying to do everything I tried to do, I tried to do without God. I went to meetings, but I would go to meetings late so that I didn't have to stand up as new because I couldn't handle the humiliation. You know, I always kept looking at what my brothers had and thinking we all came in here together. We all came in here in the same, like in about a period of a year, 4 of us came in here together. And I thought we were all going to be together. Everything we did was always together. I have one of the tightest families in the world. It's a very tight-knit family, and it's unusually so. I've learned from other families now that we are an unusual family. And one of the things that held me together, I think, during that time was my brothers as well, because they would, no matter what happened over that 16-year period, they always treated me just like their brother. They never came at me about out. Only one time did one of my brothers come to me about my drinking music, and he got angry with me and stood there and wanted to fight and all that. And I looked at him and I said, "Oh yeah, really great 12-step call." And he just realized it, and he stopped and just turned and walked away. But anyway, the rest of the time, they just treated me like their brother, and they treated me with love. And when they did that, it was like they were the big book I was watching. I saw so many things that I was watching every single thing they did. Because with me, now that I'm so angry, I'm looking for hypocrisy. That's what happens when I'm out there like that. I didn't see it in them. What I saw was like Alcoholics Anonymous itself just walked. Thank God they walked this program the way that they talk it from. Maybe I wouldn't be here if that wasn't the case. Anyway, I was out there for all those years, and I'm angry, and I couldn't make it back by going to meetings. And then I decided that I was going to take myself through the steps, because I remembered I got sober by taking the steps. And so, in a vision for you, it says, "Though you be but one man with this book in your hand, we believe and we hope it contains all you need to begin." I've taken a lot of people through steps. I took myself through the steps. I sponsored myself, did steps 1 through 4, did a great 4th step, found a stranger, did a 5th step, and then I would skip to steps 12 and 13. And and I just kept relapsing over and over and over again. And then finally, God had to slow me down, because I'm a functional alcoholic. And all this angry time, I'm still working, I'm still making money, I'm still claiming I'm not hurting anybody other than me. And in 2009, God gave me glaucoma. So now I have 0% vision in my right eye. I have 30% vision in my left. And I'm legally blind. So now I can't drive a car anymore. Slow me down. I can't work for anybody anymore. Slow me down. I learned what it's like to be a low bottom. So now I'm on public assistance. I'm selling plasma twice a week to make ends meet. And I'm walking the streets, doing that aimless walk every day, the same as the day before. 20, like no hopes, no goals, no dreams. And every single person that I know gave up on me during those years. My mom was the last one to give up. She even gave up on me, but my mom has so much faith. She's not in the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, but she has more faith than anybody I know. And she let me rent a room in her house. She didn't want me to be home. She didn't want me to be out on the street. She thought it just might be something left in this piece of man, some piece of hope. She just had faith in God that something could happen with me. And everybody gave up, including me. Then one day I was sitting behind my mom's garage, and I remember I'd been trying to get sober. And I had a bottle of Cisco. I don't know if you guys have Cisco in your countries. It probably is outlawed in different places. Really strong liquor. And I got this bottle of Cisco, and I got paraphernalia with me, and I'm behind this garage, and I just thought to myself, get sober. I thought I quit. I quit. I can't get sober. I don't know what's going on with me. And that was my surrender. That was my surrender. My surrender came not from, it didn't come like surrendering that God could help. It came in the form of the fact that I couldn't help myself. I'd done every single thing that I could to get back, and I couldn't get back to you guys. And that was my surrender. And I'm still angry at God. I'm cursing God on a daily basis. And and I walked out of there, and I just stopped hiding the fact that I was an alcoholic, addict, and I just said, I don't care who knows what I am. And God saw fit to take mercy on me. And God had my so-called girlfriend steal my mother's car out of her. And I was renting that room in my mom's house. My baby brother pushed the door open to that room. And he said, "Where's mom's car?" And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." And he said, "You gotta leave my mother's house right then." And I was so ashamed. That was the lowest point. See, sometimes the tunnel is so dark, you don't know when the light is coming. That was actually the light at the end of my tunnel, but I felt like that was the darkest part. And I left that house, and I had to make a decision. And I'm still angry at God. I still got, it's all justified anger. Justified anger is like the worst thing in the world. And I'm angry at God, and I'm carrying that anger with me. But I made a decision finally after walking around for a whole day. I said, I'm going to try rehab one more time. And I called my sponsor. I hadn't talked to him in years. And he got me into this rehab. I'm walking around to that rehab with my head down because I hadn't looked any of you in the eye in years. And he walked up on me and he told me to pick my head up. He said I was a child of God. He said I didn't have a right to walk with my head down anymore. He told me that God put me through everything he put me through for 16 years to leave me out there like that. And I couldn't, before I could stop myself, the words just came out, "Will you take me through this?" And he said, "Yes." No, he said no at first. He said no. And I looked at him and he said, "I won't take you through the steps." He said, "I'll go through the steps with you." You know, that's the kind of sponsor I got. And we started going through those steps. While I was in that rehab, we did steps 1, 2, and 3. And I'm still angry at God, right? So I don't want to have anything to do with God. And we had and thank God that God doesn't need my permission to work in my life. Because God, once I asked him to start to take me through those steps, something changed in me. And even though I was still angry at God and I still wanted no part of God, all of a sudden something was lifted in me. All that time, throughout the entire time while I was out there, all I worried about is what people thought about me. Every time I would look at you guys, when you look back at me, I think you were judging me. I thought that you guys were thinking, why can't he be like his brother? What's wrong with him? Why can't you get this thing? Oh, Reggie, if you really wanted to be sober, you would get this thing. Or what are you going to do different this time? What's wrong with you? Why do you? It was all just, and it just fueled anger. And everything about me was anger. When I'm coming back from the multitude of relapses that I had, I'm one of those guys, you guys have seen them in the fellowship, where they're a newcomer, they're 15 or 16 years. I know people that have been trying to get this thing since the 80s and the 90s. And I was one of those guys then. All of a sudden, the first time I came here, I stayed 11 straight years, and then my and now, and I was thinking, why would anybody ever relapse? Why would anybody ever leave this thing? And maybe God needed to show me something. I don't know. I don't pretend to be God or pretend to think that I can understand God. But I remember the fact when I'm trying to get back from all those relapses, and I have all that justified anger in me. So I can't get back to God because I'm still mad at God. It's justified. It's totally justified, right? And that all I kept doing is waiting for the next relapse. Every single time I would be sober, and I'd be sober for months, but every single time. And I see that with people that I sponsor and that I work with. And they have that same thought. They say to me, "Reggie, why am I even doing this?" They say, "I'm at 60 days or I'm at 90 days. I always relapse at 60 or 90 days. I always relapse at 6 months." And I go through life, and I was going through life waiting for the next relapse, waiting to see what was going to happen next. I didn't think I was ever going to get sober. All I kept thinking was that I'm going to. So you guys have sponsees like that. You're going to see them. You'll work with some of them like that. and you don't know this because they don't talk about it, we can't talk about that, right? I couldn't talk about that. I couldn't tell you. I didn't even work with a sponsor, so I can't say that I couldn't tell my sponsor. All those 16 years, I never worked with anybody. I did it. I was doing it myself because I didn't trust you. I didn't trust God. I was thinking, why? Why would I? After last, and what kind of God let a girl be tortured for 4 months? The torturing part was worse than the dying part. And I just never could understand what part of the game that was. I guess it's not my job to understand that. But when I'm out there that long and I'm relapsing that long and that many times, but I keep coming back and I keep coming back and I keep coming back. And it's easy to look at a person that keep coming back like that and even think, why do you keep trying? Well, I keep trying because I want this more and I want to breathe air. I just don't know how to get it. And I just don't know. I wonder, what is it about you guys that all of you guys got this and I can't get it? I just can't get it. Why do you guys all, what is that magic formula? What is that thing you guys are holding back from me? And in my case, it happened when I went into that rehab and my sponsor said those words to me. And once I said, "Will you please take me through the steps?" God started pouring grace on me. He started just without my permission. I was just under grace. And I stopped worrying about what people thought about me. And I started just working with the people in that rehab at 2 days. I immediately started going to all of them and just telling them what happened in my life. I started telling them funny stories about all of my relapses and all of my times out there, anything to get them talking, right? Talk about what happened with them. And it's so true. They talk about in the book about an alcoholic can talk. We can get another alcoholic to talk and work with us when nobody else can. They can talk once they know that. That's why we tell our story. I know a lot of people, and I'm not trying to preach here or anything, but I'm a guy who was sitting out there for 16 years. And I know I've been new for so long. I've worked with so many new people. And that's why we tell our stories, not for the people that are sitting here and have been here forever, but when you tell something about yourself and I look at you and I say, oh, you really do know. Oh, you really have been through it. Oh, that's fun. Once I laugh, when I laugh, I've connected. If you make me laugh, if I laugh because of something that I see in you that I saw in me, and I really get connected, please always tell your stories, guys. Don't think that you only need to tell about recovery. Our experiences are our most valuable asset. Our experience, not the information in the book. The information in the book is so valuable. That's the map, that's not the treasure. The treasure is what you have in your heart and what you have in here, deep down in here, the things that you've gone through and the things you've suffered through. Your absolute worst experiences are absolute best things that will help people. And I found that to be true in me and what happened in my life with my daughter. And it's sort of like God takes lemons and make lemonade out of it. Because there's nothing that could be said good about my baby being tortured and killed like that. God takes that. He rehabilitates me. He let me get out of that rehab, let me walk back in the never too early big book workshop when I never was going to walk in there with less than a year. And he let us be right on that third step during the third step prayer. God just pouring grace, pouring grace. I walked in there and we were right on the third step prayer, and I was on the third step. And it was 300 of us on our knees, holding hands, doing that third step prayer. And I'm still cursing God right then. And I had absolutely no belief that he could do anything. He couldn't work for me. But I believe that you guys believe. And that was enough. And then my brother Ralph, he has a saying about justified anger, just like we're talking about right now. He talks about justified anger. He drives that home in Never Too Early Big Book Workshop. Justified anger. If you've been raped as a child, molested as an adult, if your daughter's been tortured and murdered, and she did nothing to nobody in the red eye. Do Do you want to be right or do you want to be free? Do you want to be right or do you want to be free? Because sometimes there's just nothing good to be said about. There's no reason for it. So now, why am I? The only thing wrong with all of that is that I'm allowing it in a prison. I'm allowing the situation that happened to overwhelm my entire life and keep me in a prison of my own anger, my own justified anger. And the more justified it is, the stronger the bars are, and I can't get out. And I chose freedom finally this time, and I put God on that fourth step. And when I put him on the fourth step, things started to look different. I realized that God wasn't the one that gave my daughter medication, the bad medication. That was a first-year neurologist at Children's Hospital who they fired after that. God wasn't the one that made the decision for my daughter to die. That was a hospital administrator at Cedars-Sinai Hospital. When they made it, they sat there and crunched the numbers and made a money decision and said, we can't take the chance. They didn't think that we would do a medical malpractice trial. Most people don't. And they said, we can't take that chance. We gotta let her die. It wasn't God, it was them, man, in both cases. But wait, I prayed, God, take my life, save my daughter. Well, when did God start moving instead of me working with God? And things started to look different. Things started to look different. I was still angry at God because he only let me have my baby for 4.5 years and ripped her out of my life. But see, I didn't ever think I could have her. I've gone bareback all my life. I'd never used protective. I'd never got anybody pregnant my entire life. And I didn't think I could have a baby. And then I had this miracle baby, right? And so the way I prefer to look at it, when I look at the world differently, they talk about it. Dr. Silkworth talks about it and Dr. Young. They talk about that psychic change. Silkworth talks about it as a displacement. We're totally changing your mental psyche, total displacement of things. And they talk about it as a total psychic change. And it's a change in the way that I look at things, change in the way I look at the world. And they say that's what we need. And the way I call it is when I look at the world looks back differently. And when I look at the world differently, God is holding my baby Angela Marie right in his arms. And he's looking down on earth and he tells her, you're going to be tortured the last 4 months of your life and you're going to die. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you to a man that's going to love you every single day of your life. To the best father in the world, he gave my miracle baby, what I couldn't have. And the way I prefer to look at it is that God didn't take my baby. He didn't just take my daughter after 4.5 years. What God did is he allowed me to be a father for 4.5 years to the most perfect little girl in the world, to the most perfect baby in the world. And he gave me an opportunity to be a dad, the best 4.5 years of my life. And that's the way I prefer to look at it, because when I look at the world differently, the world looks back differently. And when I looked at it like that, all of a sudden things pivoted. And all of a sudden I could stop being so bitter. I could stop being so angry. The world started to look just a little bit different to me. And then it started that situation where God is, instead of giving me lemons, just totally lemons, started to make lemonade. And what I decided to do is I decided that I needed to be grateful for what I had, that I had that little girl in my life. Then I started to make those amends to the people that I'd harmed. I harmed so many people over those 16 years. And when I started to look at that and I started to make all those amends, I stopped looking at me and I stopped being so bitter. Once I stopped focusing on me and I started focusing on you guys, things got better in my life. I started to help my mom. I made amends to my mom who had suffered so much with me and had done so much with me. And thank God that she's still alive right now. She's 93 years old and she turned 93 on February 1st this year. Got all of her faculties, all of everything here mentally and physically. And thank God she's lived this long. I've been able to make not only an amends, but continue to make living amends to her. I've been able to get back with my family who had been, I always said I was hurting nobody but me. And I didn't realize I was a total hole in my family. It was like a black hole in there where I had been. And we just don't realize who we're a tornado. We're a tornado in other people's lives. Then we're tearing people's lives apart. And when we come back and we make it back, I've been able to be in so many people's lives. And that's where God has started making the lemonade out of lemons. I remember when I came back, I tell you, something changed in me. And I said, I'm going to go. In every meeting I went to, I started going to everybody, not just the newcomers, but the old timers. And I went in shaking people's hands and taking names. And I'm not that kind of guy. I'm really kind of a shy guy, but I went in like that. And then the pandemic came, after a couple of years back, 2 or 3 years back, then the pandemic came and I was terrified. I went 2 weeks with no meetings and I didn't know what I would do. And I started thinking, what can I do? And then I was over with my brother Ralph at my mom's house. And then Chris Finley called and she said, look, guys, I have a Zoom account because she's a professor at USC, a university here. And she said, I have a Zoom account. We could do Never Too Early Big Book Workshop on Zoom. And we said, that's it. We'll do it on Zoom. And then I said, we were all talking, and I said, well, how will people know about the meeting? How will people know about where they can find meetings? I said, I'm going to make sure that everybody can find meetings on Zoom. That newcomers, when they want to look for meetings, they can find meetings. And I gave myself that commitment. And so from the start of the pandemic until now, every single day I send out meetings. Right now, it's probably 900 to 1,000 people a day. I send out meetings. I try to always stay youthful, be outside of myself. My philosophy is now that I don't care what anybody says or does to me. I am so overpaid. I've been so overpaid since I've been back, and that I've been given such a blessing. I've had 2 tremendous sobrieties in one lifetime, and it is my job to take every opportunity to pay back just a little bit of what's been so freely given to me. So not only do I send those meetings out all the time, what I do on a daily basis is I never worry about me. All I worry about is you guys. There's not one person that could say they call me or text me and I don't call them or text them back. There's not one person, if they ask me to do something that I'm gonna step up if I can possibly do it, that I do it. Because I realize I try to help God's kids and I stop worrying about me, that God can step in behind my back when I'm not looking and work miracles in my life. Because as long as I'm trying to do stuff in my life, I'm just putting my hands in the pot. God can't cook. God is the only one who can cook in my life. He's the only one with hands in the pot. He has to sneak in when I'm not looking and do something in my life. So I don't worry about it, in other words. Mr. Young Lee, I want to thank you so much for inviting me out, so much for giving me an opportunity to come back and just try to pay a little bit of what you've given to me. You've given me the world on a daily basis. I follow you every day, all of your travels, everything, and it gives me such pleasure. I want to thank you guys for coming out and listening to me. My name is Reggie White. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you for allowing me.
Wow. Thank you, Reggie. I am